Hi, welcome to ChaosChats, where we talk everything fantasy, sci-fi, and comics. We're your hosts, Michael Portis.
And I'm Steven Fortis. And today, we're doing a movie review with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
And we start these videos with our 5 least favorite things and 5 favorite things. It gives us a chance to reanalyze movies we've already seen and give an opportunity for both good and bad critique.
Yeah, so even if we love the movie, we have to think of something we don't like. And even if we hate the movie, we have to find something we do.
At the end, we'll give an overall review, and we'll have cat heads to represent how many stars we're giving, so to speak. So there are 5 cat heads in total, so if a movie gets 5 cat heads, then it's the bee's knees, as they say.
So as we said, we're doing Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The first one of the saga, starting it out.
Right, and this is, we're doing it in the order of chronological order because we felt like that was just the best way to start. It's kind of a controversial film. A lot of people these days now are acknowledging the prequels for what they are. We grew up with them. We thought they were good stuff, but a lot of people are a little sketchy on the prequels and how good they are. Some people hate them a lot, and it's just
Yeah, a lot of fans are very controversial about it. I mean, they're doing better about the prequels now that the sequels are out, but there's still some fans who really don't like it, especially this one, The Phantom Menace.
right.
However, even though we're doing lists of things we like and don't like, they're not going to be your typical lists. We're not going to find your usual complaints here, or even really your usual likes either.
We like to have our own unique opinions on things, and often we do because we're just nerds like that. So,
Well, should we start off?
I think we should get started.
All right. Starting off with the list of 5 things we don't like about this movie.
What's number 5?
Number 5 was the very awkward coincidences of Anakin's space flight.
Yes, many accidents happened for Anakin to destroy an entire separatist ship, and it's a little odd.
Yeah,
to say
I
the least.
first, he takes off because he's trying to blast down the droidicons, but he looks over the obvious trigger, looking for the trigger, and instead accidentally flies off, closes the cockpit, and takes off into space on autopilot.
And there's scenes where the autopilot's still running and he's still just kind of winging it, and he gets hit and he happens to land in the hangar of the ship, and there's just a lot of oops, I guess I'm doing this now situation.
Whoops, I'm the hero. He didn't even mean to destroy it. He just accidentally fires off torpedoes.
And it's a shame too, because he's supposed to be a good pilot anyway, even at his age. But he's flying a foreign craft out in this crazy space battle in these ships that are for a peaceful planet, and somehow everything's just falling into place, hand in hand, just going as if there was no problems.
Yeah, and you could blame that on the Force, but still, watching it happen, it seems kind of awkward that everything that leads up to him destroying that ship is just kind of, whoops, I accidentally did this.
And Anakin is supposed to be veritably Force gifted, but And that can account for some things, but as far as like accessing the ship's flight and closing cockpit, getting out there, just seeming so haphazard, and him like saying like "whoops" like half the time, it's not very
Yeah. It
smooth.
didn't flow very well. And of course, he finally gets autopilot off and he's doing tricks.
Well, try spinning. That's a neat trick.
That is a good trick. Well, maybe Sheep should try that.
That's for another movie.
But
What's next on our list?
number 4 is a few of the minor characters had a few questionable choices. Such as a very minor one being how the decoy queen makes the actual queen do hard labor and clean up R2-D2.
Right, he had just saved the ship from the turmoil and reactivated his shields, and he was being commended. But the decoy queen is like, "Hey, actual queen, who is posing as a handmaiden, let's have you, of all the handmaidens, clean this droid up as a celebration for it."
And like I said, that's a minor one. But then there's the governor from Naboo, who actually shows up at the hangar to leave with the queen, and then stays behind on the planet to suffer.
He contacts Queen Amidala multiple times throughout the movie after he's left behind, considering he was in the hangar with the Jedi, rescued whenever Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon came to rescue them. He was there, he was present, and so when everything was going down, he must have stayed behind for some reason, and he contacts them later in the movie like, "We're suffering out here, help us." And it's like, well,
You did it to yourself.
you could say there's some nobility in staying behind, but he really had no reason to, considering he was in every fit situation to get out of there and be okay.
Yeah.
And so character decisions, they're minor character decisions, and that one, the governor's a little more major considering it has more plot relevance, but poor choices, I think.
But I guess on to number 3 is the planet's core scene.
Yeah.
There was a few moments of peril that ends after just a moment, and besides a little bit of Jar Jar exposition, there's really almost no point in it.
Yeah, and even the whole situation doesn't feel very high stakes. It's like something's happening, and then it is resolved just as quickly as it happens, and that takes away a lot of the agency of the situation, a lot of the oh my gosh, we're in trouble. No, we're not. There's always a bigger fish.
Always. And that bigger fish is the Sando Aqua Monster.
The Sando Aqua Monster, to call out the nerd inside of us that knows the name of the creature. That thing is massive, and it eats both the fish that they run into, which is... you could say that maybe they darted into the same a tunnel and then darted out of the same tunnel, and then it was still there. That's not too hard to argue, but it's just like, first of all, that thing lives to bail them out of situations, and second, it's just very, very, in the end, a very not necessary scene. It was there for action and intrigue and Jar Jar exposition, but I feel like the Jar Jar exposition could happen elsewhere as well.
Yeah, it really could have happened at any point. Yeah, even at the scene where he's in the city, they could have explained what he did more or some of that. But, so really, it being right there wasn't the most necessary thing. But, you know.
On to number 2. What do you think?
Yes. Number 2 is some of the dialogue.
There were times, and this isn't to say the dialogue of the movie as a whole, but there were times where the dialogue felt a little rushed in scenes. At least it seemed like they were just straight to get to the point. And they were that's what they were there for.
Yes, there's a lot to say and a lot to do in the movie, and they just kind of dialogue rushed a few times. And also there's a few parts that were obvious voiceover, but also didn't match mouths or didn't match the mood.
There's a specific scene where the Neimoidian is talking, and he moves his head up and his mouth doesn't move until after the words are coming out. And really it's closer to the end of the sentence anyway. There's
the time Anakin jumps off the counter and didn't even open his mouth and goes, "Yippee!" Yippee! Doesn't even look excited.
cringy in itself. The yippee is a little forced, maybe.
And Anakin's friends that show up to inspect his junky Padres, they all seemed pretty voiceover, and that none of them seemed to match.
They very much their kiddish charm of looking all like laughing and making fun of Anakin for their for his Padres wasn't phenomenal.
Yeah, the child laugh track as they walked away, not laughing, was.
It was rich. It was rich, is what it is. It was so fake. And you even see one of the little girl's faces as she's walking away, and she's like,
She walks away completely dead faced as
walks away, and
they play this laugh track.
no,
Not believable.
not believable. Yeah.
And a lot of the dialogue for Anakin himself, really, I mean, I get they were writing a kid, but at the same time, there's a lot of whoopee and oops, and you've been a great pal, and
Very
kind of cringy.
cringy. And I don't think that should be blamed on poor Jake Lloyd, who played Anakin.
No, it's not his fault. He did the lines he was
He
given.
did his lines. He did the lines he was given. And some of them were decent and profound, and some of them felt like they made sense. But
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't always cringy. I mean, he had his good moments.
all right.
But speaking of Anakin, let's go to number 1.
Number 1.
And that's really Anakin's age here. I think a lot of his cringy dialogue came from them writing a child. And for the most part, everything might have played out better if he was a little bit older. Now,
Well, there's a lot of things with the pod racing. Supposedly he's been in multiple pod races and has wrecked. Like he didn't. No, granted, for their sake, he didn't finish most of them, but also the fact that you're getting a kid 9 or younger to pilot a dangerous racing craft. And I realize that he's considered a slave in this context, which is a shame. But I feel like that kind of responsibility would have been given to somebody a little bit older. At the very least, get him in the mid-teens, maybe, to where he could have been doing it for a couple of years now, and it's happened.
Yeah.
And him knowing as much as he does about piloting. Not to say that kids aren't smart. It's just I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of things that could have worked better had he been a little bit older.
Yeah, and he could have started to form something with him and Padme already if he was a little bit older too.
And it's not like Padme. You know, Anakin's side of things was fulfilled. He had that crush on her. You could tell. He was talking about how much he cared about her in the movie. But Padme's feelings really can't start budding for this 9-year-old kid yet. And she's like 14 in this movie. Obviously, Natalie Portman was not 14 in this movie. But Padme is supposedly 14 in this movie. And it would be difficult for a 14-year-old girl to just form this like bond with a 9-year-old kid. And if he was closer to her age a little bit, at least somewhat, it would have made we could have started making that connection a little sooner on her end, because it's made on Anakin's end, but her end is where it's lacking.
Yes, and obviously you have to wait till the next movie before she can start forming feelings, because until then, for the past 10 years, in her mind, he's just been the little boy on Tatooine. Well, that could have been different.
Oh no, he's hot.
And, well, that concludes our list of negative things, and as we told you, it's not very typical, because, as you can tell, you haven't seen pod races and Jar Jar and Senate meetings.
There are some things that we actually enjoy, some things that we've purposely left off this list. I mean, honestly, for us, we being raised with it as an option, you know, when we were just kids, you know, was really into episode 1 when it came out.
Yeah.
It was difficult for us to come up with a 5 least favorite things.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's really the movie that got us into Star Wars, because we were young then. I was basically Anakin's age myself when it came out. I was 8 at the time.
I was much younger.
So this was kind of the one that got me into the Star Wars fandom, and so there is a lot of nostalgia here, and even that nostalgia, it can't even let me complain too much about Jar Jar.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people talk about Jar Jar all the time, and talk bad about it, and maybe there's some validity to their point, but like for us, it's like, well, he was kind of there for us, and we actually found him kind of funny in certain parts.
Yeah, I mean, certainly he's not like our favorite character, but I mean, he's not the worst thing.
There are much worse things than Jar Jar.
But speaking of things that we like about the movie, let's get on to the 5 things we enjoy about The Phantom Menace. Starting with number 5 is probably the most memorable thing, the soundtrack.
Let me tell you, the prequels, if you don't give them any credit for anything else, John Williams is a brilliant man, and that just shows in this movie. And I mean, you can't walk away from the Duel of Fates and say this movie had a bad soundtrack,
Right.
you know?
I mean, the door opens, Darth Maul shows up, and suddenly that orchestra is just shooting fire. Like,
Operatic. just beautiful.
It was just fantastic.
And that's not the only thing. Obviously the original Star Wars theme. Even some of the music during the pod racing. It really music influences a lot of your moods in situations. And I feel like John Williams just did a great job in certain scenes with capturing how you should feel in this moment. He's very expressive in his composition, I should say.
Yes, and I'd even credit the Trade Federation droid march music.
The Trade Federation droid march music was on point. And it really states this the feeling that you're supposed to get off from them. They're a very opposing force, and this was a prim and proper droid army that was waltzing in. It expresses that feeling of overbearing villainy in a way to the public. It's just it's a powerful song, resonating a very oppressive group of people, I suppose.
Yes, the music definitely played a huge part in this movie. Which now we should probably move to number 4. And even though he played a minor role, he actually played a pretty big role. Palpatine in this movie.
Palpatine. Let's talk about how intricate Palpatine's plans are in the Senate.
Yes. A lot of people's complaints is the boring Senate scenes, but that's because you're probably not paying attention to the man himself.
Sheev, the one who orchestrates it, the one who makes it all worthwhile to understand the politics of Star Wars. And honestly, I find the politics of Star Wars much more interesting than our own.
Even though he's just a senator here, you can see how things were manipulated to put him into power. It starts out when the Senate raises the taxes on trade routes. Obviously, that causes a problem for the Trade Federation. But the Trade Federation are cowards. But at the same time, those cowards somehow decide to fight against the higher taxes by blockading Naboo. Now, who makes them do that? Palpatine. Shadowy, hooded figure in the background, going by Darth Sidious, who is orchestrating this whole thing, and pushed the Trade Federation to do that. And honestly, the move that the Trade Federation made helped the Queen lose faith in the Senate itself and the Senate's Chancellor.
You see the scenes where she comes to Coruscant, and all he's doing is reassuring her of the negatives of the Senate's position. He's telling her how Chancellor Valorum is bought out by these bureaucrats, how the Senate itself is filled with just corrupt politicians who don't care anymore about anything, and who are all about the greed and wealth. And he's really playing on the fact that her people are suffering in this moment, and he's just laying it on, just saying all these things that she needs to hear to lose confidence in the Chancellor Valorum's position, and he's just buttering himself up in the whole process.
Playing off her urgency to the Senate's sluggishness. She wants results now, and knowing full well Valorum isn't going to do anything now, so he plays it out to where her only choice is to vote out Valorum and let a new Chancellor take place, which of course he would put himself in the running. And
it's just a brilliant political move, and part of the movie's intrigue is just getting into the world itself and the building, and it's just a huge part of it. Is especially as the rest of the movies continue, Chancellor Palpatine's position, moving into that position at least. He's a senator right now, as far as the movie standards, but Senator Palpatine moving into that position. I don't know. It's all just so well orchestrated by him, because he's really just got his hands on both ends of the table, and he's just pushing them together.
And the foreshadowing, well, as far as the cinematography goes, is phenomenal. You see Palpatine's face throughout the whole thing. You know he's manipulating things. We see him at the very end when Mace Windu asks which Sith was destroyed, the Master or the Apprentice. It shows a close-up of Palpatine's face, and it's really, it's all there. Even the whole telling Anakin that we'll watch your career with great interest. It's all just foreshadowing what he's planning overall.
And it's just, it's a brilliant villain. A brilliant villain, for sure.
Yes. But we can go on about Palpatine all day. So let's move on to number 3. Now this one is something people complain about. The Padres.
The Padres.
We really like the Padres.
We love the Padres.
Now, we can credit some of it to nostalgia too, because we were really heavy into playing the video game Star Wars Episode 1 Racer on the N64.
Phenomenal game, by the way, and it was a pretty big staple in our gaming, especially racing games, because really it was one of the only racing games we played, other than, well, we had a few others, but it was a heavy racing game. We got into these characters. There's even a character that I used to play as, because you used to play as Anakin all the time. There's even a character that I used to play as that shows up in the movie, and there's just so much more to uncover in the pod race than just these people are racing and there are wrecks.
Yeah, being into the game and being heavy Star Wars nerds, we got to the point where, we're watching the race, and every pod racer we see, we know the racer. We can identify the racer by looking at their pod, and each racer has their own lore, basically. There's just so much story behind each racer.
For example, one of the racers was hired as an assassin by the racer Sebulba. This racer's particular name is Dudbolt. He was hired as an assassin to help eliminate other racers during the race so that he would be guaranteed a victory. Just little lore droplets like that just makes some parts just a little more interesting,
Yes. And then, you realize that it's darker than you think it is when you look at the deleted scenes and see the racer Rex Terrell's family sitting on the sidelines watching him, his wife and children, and then just for him to blow up in the race.
He's the one who runs into some stalactites hanging from the ceiling. He just runs right into them, and he's not just a random alien racer at that point. He's got a wife and kids.
Yeah,
it's not.
I mean, that deleted scene took it from his explosion from, oh, he's dead, to, oh no, he's dead.
And it's an exciting scene anyway. I mean, you've got these crazy vehicles that you haven't normally seen in Star Wars at any point. You get a racing bit in Star Wars.
Yeah, it's cultural too, because you've never really seen a sporting event in any previous Star Wars movie. And while some people might see that as an issue, it really plays on cultural, because, they got their sporting events too. Why shouldn't we see it?
It's just really it's a fun scene, and you get just like little tidbits of Sebulba cheating and Anakin trying to pull up and underdog tail it. It's a fun, just a fun scene. And I know it's not what everybody would say. Probably not everybody has fun along the ride, but
yeah, I mean,
we do.
always.
And it's an iconic thing.
Yes. So now for number 2, is Qui-Gon Jin.
Qui-Gon Jin.
Probably the main focus of the movie and main character. Qui-Gon really stands out among Jedi and characters as a whole, basically.
I mean, who doesn't take Liam Neeson as a Jedi as awesome,
Of course. I mean, Liam Neeson as a Jedi should be enough said. But really, the character even goes so much further than that.
He starts to kind of show off what Jedi could be if they're a little less legalistic. We get a couple scenes in this movie about the council being a little harsh on Anakin being brought into things and on whether or not Obi-Wan's ready to be trained, but Qui-Gon and even Obi-Wan has a scene where he approaches him and is like, if you just listen to if you just adhere to the code, then you could be a Jedi Council member by now.
Yeah.
But Qui-Gon doesn't listen to the code. He goes against the rules, and he's trying to follow the Force. He's trying to follow what he thinks is best. And a lot of times, I feel like, we look at the other Jedi as the pseudo good guy. Well, we look at them as the good guys, and when there's inevitably some repression there, and we can go into that later in later movies. But
Yeah, a lot of people look at the Jedi as being like just the ultimate good, and because of that, Qui-Gon going against them makes him maybe a little more gray. But I don't see it that way at all, really, because at this point in time, the Jedi have become very rule-oriented, legalistic. You follow the Council, or you're against the Jedi almost, or you're against the code, while Qui-Gon was following the will of the Force itself. And if anything, I think instead of gray, that makes him a better Jedi than the members on the Council. Because I feel like once upon a time, Jedi did follow the Force. And they did care about people and show compassion. But things changed. The Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years, so in that time, they became used to not having opposition that's equal to them.
And I feel like a lot of this is discussion for things to come, as far as like episode 2 and 3 and how it all kind of plays itself out. Because I have plenty of thoughts. I am a Jedi fan. Jedi are always who I look to when I think of good guys and good things. But I've very recently, rewatching the prequels and everything, I've very recently started to get an opinion of what a real Jedi is compared to some of the things we see in the prequels. But we'll save that for a later date, I suppose.
Yes, but we definitely see Qui-Gon as one of those real Jedi. One who's bound to follow the Force rather than rules laid out in front of him.
And whenever he pulls out that lightsaber, he's kicking butt too. He's not just talk. He's not just going based off of on his best decisions with the Force. He's really just laying it to them, laying it to the droids. Even in his fight with Maul, he gives them a good old backhand off a cliff. he knows how to toss some people around.
Yeah. So he's not just breaking rules; he's cracking droids too. But speaking of Qui-Gon's fighting, this brings us to our number one, which is hopefully everyone's number one.
I would be sad if it wasn't your number one.
The Duel of Fates.
How can you not go into this movie and say that the actual lightsaber fight itself is not the best part of the movie?
I mean, it's easy to even argue that this could be the best lightsaber duel in the entire saga.
It is easily, if not the best, it is one of the best. Choreographed, the 2 Jedi versus 1 Sith, the dual-bladed lightsaber intro. You've got Maul doing flips and kicks and just...
Even the synergy between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and how they fight so well together. Even Obi-Wan doing a little bluff fake-out move while Qui-Gon actually does the attack. And you just see... And you know, Darth Maul sees that, so he instinctively tries to separate them.
He continuously tries to kick Obi-Wan off the side and keep Qui-Gon to himself.
And you know, the whole fight is just fantastic. Going along with that soundtrack, it is just... It is the best thing.
Great work. And even I noticed Qui-Gon does quite a few overhead flourishes in his fights, and so when Darth Maul goes to kill Qui-Gon, it looks like Qui-Gon, he's got a saber over his head, like he's doing something similar to what he's been doing throughout the fight, and so he just takes advantage of it and just knocks the saber out of the way and then goes in for the kill. And you know, it's the little details like that.
Yeah. And then
we can't not talk about when Obi-Wan solos
Yes.
Maul.
That is easily the best part of the best part.
As soon as he rushes out, I mean, it's full on just clash, clash, clash. They're just going at it tight and
Constant. Just
and you know, if you knowing something about the behind the scenes, which I thoroughly ask you to investigate on your own at some point. Ewan McGregor talks about how they actually had to slow down the movie take of that fight scene because they had the choreograph work. They had it down so pat, and they were just going at it so hard that they thought that people wouldn't believe how fast they were going.
yes.
When they released it. So the fact that what you see in the movie is actually even slower than what they were doing.
Slowed down version. Ray Park, Ewan McGregor, moving so fast that they really thought fans would not believe they were moving that fast, so they had to slow it down. It's legendary.
It's a beautiful thought, and it is just a beautiful saber fight.
Basically, we have our actors moving faster than what you think a Jedi would. That's pretty epic. Obviously, we can thank the choreography to the Nick Gillard, the guy who did it all.
Yeah, Nick Gillard. I mean, if I had a hat, I guess proverbial hats off to you because, my lord, that was one of the best fights in the entire saga, really.
Yes. I mean, the only rival to it would be Anakin versus Obi-Wan, which is a fight we'll get into in a later movie. But I'm willing to say that this is the best fight.
Yeah, that's our list. We've covered some good things, we've covered some bad things. Now let's figure out how many cat heads out of 5 this movie deserves. 4 out of 5 cat heads for the Phantom Menace. Overall, we think this is a good movie. 4 out of 5, obviously, you know, it's got its little issues, but And some people some big issues.
Yes,
But
some people are still saying it's the worst movie in the whole saga, but I would not go that far.
I feel like you just have to look closer. You have to be
Yes.
more interested in the little details, because as soon as you get interested in the little details, they become bigger details. So
Yeah, like if you're willing to complain about the Senate scenes, then you're probably not going to pay too much close attention to them, and then you're going to miss the whole point of the movie.
and if you don't read the wall scrolls at the very beginning of the movies, you're missing some pivotal information that really sets up some of what's happening before the movie. And that's for every Star Wars movie. That's not just for this one. Every Star Wars movie has something very big happening before the movie starts usually, and it goes into it. So do some reading, my friends, at the beginning of your movies.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for coming to our Chaos Talks video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like and comment in this comment section. See if you have any opinions on the movie itself. If you think we're wrong, you leave us a comment and subscribe.
Yes. Definitely subscribe.
Subscribe.
And yeah.
We'll be here doing some more movie reviews soon.
Very soon. See ya.
Until next time.